Hi, this is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Welcome to the February 10th, 2025 Palmetto State Baseball Podcast. It's the third of this season. The podcast is part of my coverage of college baseball in South Carolina. I offer schedules, scores, rankings, notes, and other news about all 33 college baseball teams in the state at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I also try to provide information about video or audio feeds when I can. I'm active on X, formerly known as Twitter, at the handle Palmetto Base. Drop me an email at rudyjones@PalmettoStateBaseball.com or send me a message on X with comments or criticisms. Reader and listener interaction helps me know what I need to do better, or at least differently. For instance, I'm experimenting with a live scoreboard on the website instead of a lot of in-game updates on X. Let me know which you prefer. If you like my coverage of college baseball in South Carolina, tell your baseball fan friends about it. These podcasts don't have a sponsor. Instead, I take a little time each podcast to talk about the church where I serve the Lord. I invite you to worship with me at Reedy River Baptist Church, US 25 between Travelers Rest and Furman University Golf Course in Greenville County. Worship time is 10:30 on Sunday mornings. For more information, like times for Sunday school, Sunday night, and Wednesday night services, and some of the ministries we offer, visit reedyriverbc.org. Come check us out. Now back to baseball. It's time for the airing of grievances. This is sort of a continuation of my gripe from last week about the inability to get scores and details from some schools. For those of you who don't know about my background, I was a sports writer at newspapers in Greenville for about 40 years, starting in 1972. From the first months I was there, I learned that area schools were blessed to have great sports information directors. That's the old-time title for folks responsible for gathering game information and disseminating it to the press. That's called media instead of the press these days, reflecting the decline of print products and the rise of electronic media. Clemson had folks like Bob Bradley and Tim Beret. Tom Price was at South Carolina. Furman had more job churn for a while, but Hunter Reed has had that role there for decades. I first knew Hunter when he was a student at SID at Presbyterian. The list of folks who've helped me out as sports information directors is lengthy. Rick Covington, Monty Dutton and Rick Strunk of Furman, Mark Cohen at Wofford, Jimmy Wilder at the Citadel, Bill Hamilton at South Carolina State, Andy Solomon at College of Charleston and Winthrop, Dick Haldeman at Erskine. I'm sure there are others folks I was beholden to for their help, but I can't think of the name right now. You may have never heard of most of these people, but what they did would increase significantly the visibility of their respective schools' athletic programs. They did a great job, and some of them are still doing it. That's why I have little tolerance for a lack of cooperation from people whose job is to provide sports information. I got two recent examples. I emailed the director of communications at a major NCAA Division I conference with a question about TV coverage for baseball beyond streaming. Only after I wrote again 2 weeks later did I get a response. My other example is connected to North Greenville's trip to Hawaii over the weekend. I emailed a sports information director at one of the Hawaii schools with a question about coverage. The trip is over and I'm still waiting for a response. In both cases, it's literally the person's job to provide information to the media. Anyway, regarding North Greenville, thanks to Charlie Sears for helping me with timely updates so I could get updates and final scores on a timely basis for that North Greenville series. Now, you kids, get off my lawn. With that being said, I did make some discoveries last week that should help me throughout the season. Voorhees is streaming at least part of its home schedule on the Huddle app, and Morris is using a live stats program. Both are major steps ahead in keeping their fans up to date and making it easier for me to get their scores. I also decided to subscribe to Flow Sports for baseball to watch Clemson's games in the Shriners Children's College Showdown in Arlington, Texas this coming weekend. I'd heard horror stories about the poor production quality of some of the Flow Sports telecasts, and I thought paying $30 a month was too expensive, especially with that possibility. It turns out the yearly cost is $150, a little bit over $12 a month. I can swing that. So hello, South Atlantic Conference baseball and Greenville Swamp Rabbits hockey. Now, how about the week that was in South Carolina college baseball? Off the field, former Coastal Carolina coach Gary Gilmore and former South Carolina star catcher Landon Powell were selected for the latest class in the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame. Powell now the coach at North Greenville, got word during his team's road trip to Hawaii. It was a good trip for the Trailblazers. In addition to 5 wins, well, one was an exhibition, they experienced a luau and got to visit Pearl Harbor. I'm sure that was a meaningful moment to see Pearl Harbor. Also last week, the Atlantic Coast Conference announced it's changing the format for its tournament. Instead of the asinine pool play setup, it's going to go to a single elimination format involving all 16 teams. The top 4 teams will get a bye through the first 2 rounds, and the next 4 teams will get a bye in the first round. Previously, the Southeastern Conference announced a similar format for its event. Again, I think the ACC has made a wise move here. I picked Francis Marion as my team of the week for last week. The Patriots were 4-0 to improve to 7-0 under first-year coach Jeff Jefferson. He's only the 3rd coach in the program's 53-year-old history. Gerald Griffin started it and coached the team for 28 years, followed by Art Inabinit, who coached for 24 years before retiring after last season. Back on the field. I thought Florida was supposed to be a welcoming place for out-of-state visitors, but South Carolina schools, 5 of them, went down to the Sunshine State last week and came home with a 2-14 record. Bob Jones was 1-2. Florence Darlington Tech was 1-3. USC Sumter was 0-2. Erskine was 0-3, and Columbia International was 0-4 after heading down there 4-0. Sheesh. It wasn't even close enough for Hanging Chads to have made a difference in those Florida results. Claflin got a rare treat last week, playing 3 games at historic Rickwood Field in Birmingham. It was built in 1910, the oldest ballpark still in use in the country, and it was home to minor league baseball there for decades. I got a chance to see games there in 1984 while I was covering the Greenville Braves. At some point, the field lights at Rickwood are either removed or deemed inoperable because Claflin's Saturday game against Miles ended in a tie because of darkness. By the way, Morris will visit Rickwood Field this week for a couple of games against Miles. Miles plays its home games at Rickwood. The event that Claflin played in was the Willie Mays Open. It was played to honor the legacy of the late Hall of Famer from Birmingham. He played in Rickwood with the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. Willie Mays homered in the first Major League game I ever attended. I went with a group from the Greenville YMCA, went riding down I-85 on a rickety old school bus. On July the 30th, 1966, we saw the first game of a doubleheader between the Giants and the Braves. The Say Hey Kid ripped one off the left field foul pole. That was the first home run I saw. Hey, since a ball that hits it is fair, shouldn't it be called the fair pole? One of the best things in my sports writing career was I got to meet many of my childhood athletic heroes. That included Willie Mays. You may remember he finished his playing career with the Mets. He then took a front office job with the organization and worked with minor league affiliates. The 1974 Anderson team was a Mets farm team, and Mays was making a visit to the upstate. Dan Foster was sports editor of the Greenville News. He knew everybody, had connections with everybody. He arranged to play a round of golf with Mays and a couple of other people on the Furman University golf course. Dan told me when they were playing and said that if I followed the group around for a while, he would introduce me to the Say Hey Kid. I lived barely a mile from the Furman golf course then, so there was no way I was turning that down. With a 1954 Bowman Willie Mays baseball card in my shirt pocket, I arrived and followed the group. Somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd hole, Dan called me over and introduced me. I shook Mays' hand, but didn't have the courage to ask for his autograph. In other news, the Winthrop Ballpark got a new name last week when Founders Federal Credit Union announced a new partnership that included naming rights and financial commitment. The Rock Hill Stadium is now known as Founders Field. The first game under that new moniker will be against Merrimack on Friday. In other ballpark news, the April 1st meeting between USC Upstate and Wofford will be played at Fifth Third Park in downtown Spartanburg. That stadium has been built to host the minor league Hub City Spartanburgers. Don't like the nickname. But the Spartanburgers begin their first season in the South Atlantic League on April the 15th. I haven't driven by the park since last year, but a friend did so over the weekend and said it's really looking nice. If it does for downtown Spartanburg what Fluor Field did for downtown Greenville, it will be a game changer. While on the subject of ballparks, the Greenville Drive posted a graphic on X touting the college and high school games being played at Fluor Field this season. At least 14 college teams, including 9 state teams, will play there this season. Games start on February 28th when Michigan State plays Harvard. The Drive's graphic also lists 12 high school teams on their schedule. The Drive organization has been a great partner to so many groups and so many teams since it arrived in the area 2 decades ago. There's not going to be an HBCU Classic at Fluor Field this weekend, but Drive General Manager Eric Jarenko said there will be an HBCU College Fair at the Drive's April 19th game, and that's part of the events they're doing to honor the Greenville Black Spinners. That was a prominent part of the black community during the segregation era. Speaking of HBCUs, Texas College got its first win since the Trump presidency on Sunday. They beat the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy. What's noteworthy about that, you ask? The last win before Sunday was in the first Trump presidency. It was March 10th, 2020 to be exact. The Steers were 0 for 99 between those two wins, meaning they were 0 for Biden. They did not get a win in the Joe Biden presidency. Statistical expert Barry Allen says that was the longest losing streak in history on any level of college baseball. The latest win didn't come easy either. The Steers dropped the first 3 games of their series to the Eutectics by a combined score of 33-5. But they won the second game on Sunday 6-5 by throwing out the potential tying run at home to end the game. Congratulations to Texas College. One other tidbit from last week. Of course, Furman dropped its baseball program after the 2020 season, but I discovered that a former Paladin is still playing college baseball. Dominic Pianto pitches for Michigan State. The Spartans have been playing some early season games at Fluor Field for several years because Drive owner Craig Brown and his alumnus. They'll be here again, as I mentioned, February 28th and then later. Too bad Pianto couldn't pitch at Fluor Field for Furman. Moving on. Of course, the big news for the coming week's schedule is the state's 10 NCAA Division I teams begin their seasons. With the exception of Clemson, they're all playing at home. Clemson, though, is playing in the Shriners Children's College Showdown at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. That's the home of the Major League Texas Rangers. Clemson's ranked in all the major preseason polls. The Tigers opened with Oklahoma State at noon on Friday, followed that with Arizona at noon on Saturday, and close with Ole Miss at 2:30 p.m. on Sunday. As I mentioned, all those games will be on Flow Sports. Palmetto opens its first season at South Carolina against Sacred Heart. National expectations for the Gamecocks are as low as they've been for quite some time. Prior to Saturday's games, the playing surface at Founders Park will be named for Ray Tanner, the former coach who was instrumental in getting the facility built and led the Gamecocks to back-to-back College World Series championships in 2010 and 11. Tanner retired as South Carolina's athletic director after last season. Former national championship coach Gary Gilmore, of course, retired at Coastal after last season, and Kevin Schnall was promoted to replace him. The Chanticleers opened their annual Baseball at the Beach event, and they're joined by Washington, Kansas State, and St. Joseph's. Down in Charleston, the Citadel hired former Clemson player Russell Triplett from Newberry to try to change its fortunes. And up I-26 just a ways, Carl Kuhn replaced Mark McMillan at Charleston Southern. The Bulldogs and Buccaneers share games with Illinois Chicago, UIC, and Miami, Ohio over the weekend. Mike McGuire stayed in the Big South Conference with a coaching move from USC Upstate to Winthrop. His new team opens at home against Merrimack. Kane Sweeney, who was promoted to replace McGuire at the helm of the Spartans, opens a home series against Boston College. And the Eagles, I had a brain cramp there for a minute. The Eagles are coached by former Wofford coach Todd Tornado. Speaking of Wofford, the Terriers opened their bid for a second straight trip to the NCAA tournament with a home series against Ohio. Rounding out the Division I openers, Presbyterian plays host to Georgetown, and College of Charleston is at home against VCU. The Cougars coach Chad Holbrook may be motivated by being snubbed by the tournament selection committee after an outstanding 2024 season. Benedict becomes the state's final NCAA Division II club to open its season, going to Claflin on Thursday. Other weekday matchups of state teams include a pair of games moved from Tuesday to Monday. Anderson is at Limestone, and Spartanburg Methodist plays host to Columbia International. That game originally was supposed to be played in Columbia, but they moved it to the upstate. Also on Tuesday, Claflin visits Erskine. Some other schedule notes. The annual Swig and Swine Classic at Shipyard Park near Charleston features 6 out-of-state NCAA Division I teams. Florence Darlington Tech, which has played a couple of challenging tournaments in Florida over the past 2 weekends, plays host to the Stinger Invitational on campus and at Carolina Bank Field. League play begins for the Appalachian Athletic Conference, Conference Carolinas, and South Atlantic Conference teams this weekend. If you enjoy my podcast and other coverage of college baseball in South Carolina, please tell your baseball fan friends about it and ask them to check out PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Also, let me know what you think I should do better, could do better, or at least differently. Email comments, compliments, criticisms, or suggestions to me at rudyjones@PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I want your input to help my coverage of the best level of the greatest sport God ever allowed to be invented to be as good as it can be. As a reminder, I invite you to come worship with me at Reedy River Baptist Church, 871 North 25 between Travelers Rest and Furman Golf Course in Greenville County. Worship time is 10:30 on Sunday mornings. I hope you will discover that we're a friendly church and will want to worship with us regularly. Learn more about us at our website, reedyriverbc.org. Thanks again for listening to the February 10th, 2025 episode of the Palmetto State Baseball Podcast. This is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com saying, it's a beautiful day for baseball. Let's play two.